Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going deep into decentralized AI, DAI.
DAI.
Yeah, DAI for short.
Right.
Now, we all know AI is, changing so fast, but it feels like it's all in the hands of these big companies,
Yeah.
like the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons.
Mm,
But is there another way? Well, that's what we're going to explore today.
right.
DAI offers a completely different way of thinking about artificial intelligence, and we have a great source,
Yes.
Fundamentals of Decentralized AI, to guide us.
This document is a fantastic overview of just, the state of DAI right now.
I'm already fascinated by some of these projects we're going to talk about, like algorithms that earn rewards based on how intelligent they are,
That's right.
or data storage that's basically permanent. It's
Yeah.
pretty mind-blowing. But before we get too far ahead,
Yep.
can you give us just a quick snapshot of like the current AI landscape?
We'll just look at LLMs, for example.
LLM?
Large language models.
Right.
Like Janus Pro by DeepSeek, which can already handle both text and images. And then there's Google's Gemini 2.0 Flash, which integrates real-time data from Google Search.
It's moving so fast.
Right.
And the source material, it raises a concern about all this power being in the hands of these few companies.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the
Right.
biggest concerns. Imagine a world where just a handful of companies control the most powerful AI.
Yeah.
That's kind of a scary thought.
It's a little bit dystopian.
It really is.
It
Yeah.
raises all these questions about, bias, access.
Yeah, benefits, who benefits.
From all these advancements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how does DAI propose to address this? Like, what's the solution here?
Well, this is where blockchain comes in.
Okay.
You're probably familiar with blockchain from crypto,
Right.
but it has much broader applications.
Okay.
Blockchain offers a way to decentralize control. It's transparent,
Right.
secure, and most importantly, distributed. So no single entity can control the network.
Okay, I see how blockchain kind of fits into this.
Can you explain exactly what we mean by decentralized AI? Like,
Yeah.
what does that actually mean?
Instead of having one super intelligent AI calling all the shots, DAI envisions a system where multiple AIs,
Okay.
each specializing in different tasks, can work together.
So it's like a team.
More like a network of intelligent agents
Okay.
rather than a single monolithic entity.
I like that a team effort where no single AI is in control.
Right.
The source actually has this visual figure too that shows that.
Yeah.
But how do we actually build this? Like, what are the pieces?
Okay, so the source breaks it down into 3 pillars.
Okay.
Data compute and algorithms.
Okay.
Those are the fundamental pieces of any AI system.
Makes sense.
So for DAI to work, all 3 of these need to be decentralized.
So let's start with data then.
Okay.
I can see why decentralized data storage is so important.
Right.
Like, you can't have a decentralized AI if the data it learns from is locked away in some company's servers.
Right. And the source really emphasizes the limitations of that centralized storage.
Right.
All your data in one place, it's vulnerable to breaches, censorship, even manipulation.
I mean, we've seen enough data breaches to know that that's a real problem.
Absolutely.
But what's the alternative then?
Well, DAI proponents are looking at projects like Filecoin and Arweave
Okay.
for decentralized storage solutions.
Okay.
These platforms use blockchain to ensure data integrity and availability. They spread it across a network.
So instead of relying on one company's data center,
Exactly.
they're distributing the data.
Across a whole network of computers.
And that sounds way more secure.
Right.
What are the specific advantages of each of those?
Well, Filecoin actually incentivizes people to use their unused hard drive space to store data.
Oh, wow.
It's a win-win.
So you get rewarded for contributing to the network.
Exactly, and the system benefits from the added storage capacity.
Cool.
Filecoin also uses these mechanisms called proof of spacetime and proof of replication.
Those sound intense.
They are.
What do they do?
Essentially, they provide a cryptographic guarantee that the data is being stored correctly and redundantly.
Okay.
It's like a built-in verification system.
So it's like double checking everything.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, what about Arweave?
So Arweave, their big idea is permanent data storage.
Permanent.
Imagine data that can never be altered or deleted,
Wait, so like forever?
even if someone tries to tamper with it.
That sounds impossible.
It's not magic. It's clever cryptography and blockchain.
Wow.
This permanence has huge implications for DAI research
Okay.
because you have a tamper-proof record of the data used to train AI models.
So you can always go back and see exactly what was used.
Exactly ensures transparency and reproducibility.
Wow, that's amazing. A permanent record of data for training AI.
That's the goal.
That's huge.
Yeah,
That could revolutionize the whole field.
right.
Okay, so we've talked about data storage.
Yeah.
We see how that works in a decentralized system. But what about the compute power to run these models?
That's a great question.
That's got to be a big challenge.
It is.
Right.
And that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay, let's dive into that in part 2.
We will. Sounds good. It's amazing how these DAI projects find these solutions.
Yeah.
They're not just about decentralizing control.
Yeah.
They're making AI more efficient and accessible.
Yeah, that's a great point. We talked about how Filecoin and Arweave make it more secure and accessible to store data,
Right.
but they also fix some of the problems of centralized systems.
Yeah.
Think about those massive data centers that companies like Google and Amazon use.
Huge.
They use so much energy, so many resources.
And space.
In space, yeah, it's crazy.
It is.
Decentralized systems like Filecoin use those existing resources better.
Right.
Like, remember how Filecoin lets people use their extra hard drive space?
Yeah, it's a win-win.
People get rewarded and it uses less energy overall.
Exactly.
It's like turning something that's just sitting there into something valuable.
Yeah.
And that same idea probably applies to the computing power that you need to run these AI models.
Absolutely. DAI can use decentralized computing networks to create this global pool of processing power.
Wow.
So it's not just about distributing control.
Mhm.
It's about giving more people access to these AI resources.
Okay, so instead of needing these companies with huge data centers,
Right.
we can use all of the computers around the world. That's a
Yeah.
really cool idea. But can those networks really compete with like the huge processing power of Google or something?
Well, that's a good question. And the answer is becoming more and more clear. Yes.
Really?
The source actually mentions that big tech increased their spending on computer hardware for AI training by 26%.
26%?
Just between 2023 and 2024.
In 1 year.
Yeah,
Wow. So that shows how important compute power is becoming.
it's crucial.
But if they're spending that much, how can DAI keep up?
Well, by tapping into a resource that big tech can't control,
Okay.
the collective power of all our devices.
What do you mean?
Take the render network, for example. They let people share their idle GPU power. Yeah,
Wait, you mean like the power in our gaming PCs?
exactly.
When we're not even using them, can be used to train AI.
Exactly.
That's wild. It's like crowdsourcing for computing power.
Exact.
That's so cool. And there's another project called AIOZ, and they focus on edge computing.
Right. Instead of those big data centers,
Mm-hmm.
they bring the computation closer to where the data is.
So with Render, we're using the power of individual devices.
Yeah.
And with AIOZ, we're optimizing how that power is spread out. It's like attacking the problem from both sides.
That's a great way to put it.
But how do they make sure that the computation is accurate
Yeah, that's a great question.
when it's spread across so many different computers?
It gets pretty technical, but they basically have these protocols and algorithms to manage it all.
Okay.
They distribute the tasks, they verify the results,
Mhm.
and make sure the computations are good,
That's awesome. Okay, so we've covered data storage.
right?
We've covered compute power.
Mhm.
But there's one more piece, algorithms. Creating these AI algorithms takes so much talent
It does?
and expertise.
A lot of resources.
How does DAI approach that?
So developing those algorithms is resource intensive.
Yeah.
The source actually says that OpenAI spends about $1.5 billion every year
Wow.
just on labor for that development.
That's insane.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so how does DAI do it?
Well, DAI has a solution.
Okay.
They incentivize that development with proof of intelligence, or PUI.
Proof of intelligence, that sounds cool.
Yeah. So Bittenser created this platform where developers can share their algorithms,
Mm-hmm.
and then those algorithms are evaluated based on how well they perform on tasks.
Oh, yep.
And the better they do, the more rewards the developer gets.
So it's like the best algorithms rise to the top.
It
It's like a
is.
meritocracy for AI.
I like that.
And then Bittenser uses its own token called TAO
Right.
to reward those participants.
Yeah.
So we have proof of intelligence to make sure the algorithms are good,
Mm-hmm.
and this token system to encourage people to participate.
Right. It's a whole ecosystem.
That's really cool how DAI is figuring out these solutions to these huge problems.
Yeah, it really shows the power of incentives and
Mhm.
community.
Mhm.
But we should remember that this is all pretty new.
Yeah.
DAI is still early, and there are challenges and questions as it develops.
Okay, so let's talk about those challenges.
Sure.
What are some of the things that DAI needs to overcome?
Yeah.
So we've talked about all this potential with DAI,
Yeah,
but it's still really early.
it is. Yeah.
What are some of the challenges that might hold it back?
Well, scalability is a big one.
Okay.
Can these decentralized networks handle the huge amount of data and computation that these AI models need?
Right, because it's one thing to make it work on a small scale,
Right.
but to really make it useful,
Right.
it needs to be able to handle these real-world applications.
Right.
What other challenges do you see?
Well, there's the question of regulation.
Okay.
How do we make sure that these DAI systems are used responsibly and ethically?
Right.
The source doesn't really go into that too much.
Yeah.
But it's something we have to think about as a society.
Yeah, because any powerful technology we
Yeah.
need to be careful about.
Yeah, we need to understand the risks.
The risks and the benefits.
Yeah. And who controls it.
And who controls it.
Exactly. And how do we make sure it benefits everyone?
Right, that's the big question.
Mhm.
This whole conversation about DAI,
Yeah.
it's made me think about so much more than just the technology.
Right.
It's about like the values,
The ethics.
the ethics, and the future we want.
Kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source fundamentals of decentralized AI has been great.
I agree. It's a good overview.
It really lays out the big question.
Yeah. It acknowledges that we're at a turning point.
And the decisions we make now about AI.
Yeah. They're going to have a lasting impact.
They really will.
It's true.
One thing that really stood out to me is how DAI changes who has power in technology.
Right.
Because for so long, it's been these big companies,
Yeah. With tons of resources.
all the money, all the resources.
Yeah.
But DAI kind of flips that.
That does.
It gives individuals and communities a way to participate.
Yeah. To build it and govern it.
It's almost like the early days of the internet.
Yeah. That's a good comparison.
When there was so much possibility,
That feeling that technology could connect people.
give people information.
Right. And empower them.
Empower them. Yeah, and that same energy is driving DAI.
It seems like it.
It's about taking back control, being transparent, making sure AI helps everyone.
Yeah. For the common good.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
If DAI succeeds in creating this more open and democratic and accessible AI landscape,
Yeah.
how will it change industries, economies, even societies in the years to come?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
And no one has all the answers yet.
Right, but that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, we're at the start of something new.
And we get to help shape it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to our listener out there, stay curious. Keep learning about DAI because the future is being written right now.
Maybe you'll be one of the authors. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into decentralized AI.